What I mean is this: it's an opportunity to build and experience a love that is based on reality and not on fantasy. You know that enchantment stage, that infatuation? Well, part of what's happening there is that the couple is looking at each other through these rose, colored glasses. Everything just has this rosy tint to it. They're not seeing reality. Part of their perception of each other is strongly influenced by this idealized image they have of each other. This idealized vision of who they think the other person is. But as reality sets in, as they really get to know that person over a period of time, then that wears off. And disenchantment sets in, but there's an opportunity here, an opportunity to have a love that's based on reality and not on fantasy. And as the note sheet says, a love that is based on reality is much more stable and ultimately much more fulfilling than a love that is based on fantasy. See, as long as you're in that infatuation, not really seeing the person for who they really are, you're not able to have a stable love, because one day that will wear off. That will end. But when you are able to really love someone, even though you know who they are and they know who you are, and yet you're still able to share a love, then you're building a love that's stable. Now, there are some people who, for all sorts of different reasons, are scared to death to get out of the enchantment stage. They don't know how to handle it, and you will see them bounce from relationship to relationship. Usually dating relationship to dating relationship, sometimes marriage to marriage, because they can't handle letting go of the enchantment phase. They're stuck in it. In their minds, that's what love is supposed to be all the time. And when that's not there anymore, they kind of freak out. I hope by the end of this sermon that you'll see that that is such a narrow, shallow, immature understanding of love. The enchantment stage is nice, but we have to move on. We have to move on to a love that's not based on a fantasy, but a love that's based on reality. So I think that's the first thing to keep in mind as we're thinking, how do we get through this disenchantment stage? This is an opportunity to have a stronger, more stable love. Also, we need to be sure that we have a healthy understanding of what love really is in the first place. What does love mean? We use the word love to describe the way we feel about all sorts of things. I love summer. I love UK basketball. That's why I'm a little sleepy this morning. I love ice cream. I love my mom. I love monkeys. You too? I love you. We use the same word in so many different contexts that maybe sometimes we fail to recognize that love is a multifaceted reality. There are different kinds of love. The ancient Greeks understood this. So in their language, they didn't just have one word for love. They had several different words that were used to speak of different kinds of love. For example, one word that they used was eros. It's the word from which we get our English word erotic. Eros refers to sensual, romantic love. Sensual, romantic love. And this is a love that in many places in Scripture is celebrated. This type of love was God's idea. Within a certain context, within the context of marriage, God's like, go for it. In Proverbs chapter 5, verses 18 and 19, we read this: May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. Yes, your pastor just used the word breasts in a sermon. There were other passages I could have read steamier than this one. Weren't sure if you could handle it. But what we just read, that's a biblical example of erotic love, of eros. In its proper context, in marriage, it's a good thing. Another word the Greeks used for love was philia. Philia means friendship. Philia means friendship. It's the love that two friends have for one another. In the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verses 16 through 17, we read this. But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." That is such a beautiful passage, isn't it? You might be familiar with this passage. This is a passage that is often used in weddings. But did you know that in these verses, Ruth is not speaking to her husband? In fact, in the story, her husband has just died. And in these verses, she's speaking to her mother-in-law, Naomi. Now, with that in mind, you read this, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. Where you die, I will die." Ladies, how many of you would say this to your mother-in-law? Don't answer that. I'm afraid for too many of it's, if she's been visiting for longer than 3 or 4 days, it's go back to your people. Where you stay, I will lose my mind. But not all daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationships are like that. Some are very wonderful. And here we have a beautiful example of one. Ruth's words are a very strong expression of friendship love, a philia. It's not romantic, but it definitely includes affection and a desire to share life with each other. Your best friends are people with whom you enjoy experiencing life. You want to share life with them. Philia, friendship love. The Greeks also had another word for love, agape. A-G-A-P-E. Agape. Agape love is a very special kind of love indeed. As a matter of fact, in the New Testament, which was originally written in Greek, most of the verses that talk about God's love for us use that word for love, the word agape. So it's often referred to as the God kind of love. Agape love. In 1 John 3:16, not John 3:16, but 1 John 3:16, we read this. This is how we know what love is. And in the Greek there, that word love, it's agape. This is how we know what agape is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. The sacrifice of Jesus is described as the ultimate expression of agape love. So what do we learn about agape love by looking at the sacrifice of Jesus? Well, for one thing, we need to remember that Jesus did not feel like dying for us. Jesus was not eager to undergo the crucifixion. Do you remember the night before the crucifixion? The Bible records his prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. This powerful, passionate prayer. In Matthew chapter 26 we read, it says, going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." This cup, he's referring to the cup of suffering that figuratively he was about to drink from by undergoing the crucifixion.